Okay, well, thank you all. We're now going to transition to the Q&A. Remember that you can post questions below. I have one from Shane to start us off. She's confused a little bit. 1 Corinthians 13 says love cannot be provoked to anger, but Paul's provocation in Acts 17 came from a place of love. How do you explain that?
Love cannot be provoked to unnecessary anger. Be angry, Ephesians 4:26. If you truly love somebody, you're not going to be angry with them unnecessarily. But Paul had a legitimate reason in the 17th chapter of the book of Acts to be angry, resulting from his love. The legitimate reason was, again, he's in the city and he sees that the city is given over to idols. So much idolatry, false religion. And he's angry at that because he didn't want people, look, you die apart from Christ, there's no hope for you. Colossians 1:27, Christ in you, the hope of glory. That's it. And that's why Paul said in the very next verse, him we preach, Colossians 1:28. So you can be inappropriately angered, or you can be characterized by what we sometimes call righteous indignation. And that's what Paul was characterized by in the 17th chapter of the book of Acts. In the avant-garde, the Paris of antiquity, in the avant-garde city, but the corrupt city of Athens.
Let me follow that up with another question. What does anger reveal about somebody? And a lot of people, from what I've understood in the church, they avoid public evangelism because they say, oh, that's just hatred, that's anger. But I don't think it is. I actually think it's the most replicable evangelistic style. It's not out of date. It's been done for 2,000 years. It was one of the main ways that all the apostles did it. Is it angry to shout from a microphone at Santa Monica Pier with the gospel, even when they're opposed?
I think we have to be, David, you're talking about a broad question here. What is the most effective means to evangelize? Certainly evangelize. Sometimes my kids will talk about how they love their friends. And over the years, I've responded, well, have you shared with them the gospel? I mean, don't tell me you love them if you haven't. You're going to share with them for that. You might be ostracized socially. They may not want to hang with you anymore because they consider you a religious fanatic. You can't. If you truly love somebody, you're not even. That's not even going to be in your head. What's going to be in your head is the eternal destiny of that particular person. Now, how to evangelize effectively? When I was in my wild undergraduate days at Biola, I would stand outside a Mormon church and I would hand out gospel tracts to individuals who were coming out of that church driving. And David, you remember the big Mormon temple, the huge Mormon temple in Los Angeles? We went there, I think, one Sunday to evangelize right on the grounds of the Mormon temple. And I remember a prof of mine at Biola saying, do you think that's wise? If I stand on a street corner with a sandwich board on me and start screaming out, turn or burn, turn or burn, I'm going to turn more people off. So I think we need to be wise as serpents in terms of how we evangelize. If we truly love people, we will evangelize, but we need to be very circumspect when it comes to how to evangelize. I think the best way to evangelize is through what is called, you've heard this term, David, friendship evangelism. You know you're normal, you're not a kook, a freak, and then as quickly as you can, when God provides you with the opportunity, you share with them the great message of the gospel of Christ in love.
Yeah, that's very helpful. I think, I've had experiences witnessing in many different environments, and somebody that comes from a church or walks by somebody with a microphone might quickly judge them and think they're doing wrong. But I've seen that happen in ways that is God blessing God and also hurting God. So I think it comes on the delivery. But we do need people out there in the warfare evangelism, as I say, and we also need people out there in the friendship evangelism. One question, I'll give you two more questions, answer them in a minute. Why, well, let me ask it this way. Does a moment of
By the way,
doubt...
can I just interject?
Go ahead.
Just if I can interject, people sometimes criticize the evangelistic methods of other Christians, but they themselves are not evangelizing. I remember one response to that is, look, I like the way I do it better than the way you don't do it. You're criticizing me for how I evangelize. Well, perhaps I'm not doing it perfectly, but I like the way I do it better than the way you don't do it. So you can stand and criticize me all you want, but at least I'm doing something. I'm sharing.
Amen.
Sharing the gospel with you, I'm saying.
Yeah, and that was one thing we could imitate from Paul. Paul worked a full-time job in order to witness at night. That was, he did everything for evangelism. And I just think the biggest problem with the church, we come to the pews, but we don't go to the people. And we need to go to Bloomfield. All right, guys. I hope you're getting that message across. I'm trying to belabor it because I want us to witness. And you know what? In the end of your life, one of the greatest ways that you can have purpose, and in the beginning of your life or in the middle of your life, is to still be able to bring people to heaven. And that's a beautiful thing. One other question real quick, due to time. Does a moment of doubt mean that your faith has changed?
To grow, I think all of us experience in our personal lives at times doubt for one reason or another. It's interesting what Peter wrote in Second Peter chapter 1, when he talks about the virtue to virtue, knowledge to knowledge. Verse 9, believers who lack these things have forgotten that they have been cleansed from their sin. Why is it that some Christians doubt, for example, whether or not they're truly saved? Well, because they're walking in the flesh. And Peter says that's a surefire way to forget that you've been cleansed from your old sins. How can I be saved when I'm involved in this carnality right now? How in the world could I? There's no, I don't, maybe I'm not even a Christian. I mean, Christians think along those lines, consistent with what Peter says here. You lack these virtues, you're going to start having doubts. You're going to forget that you've been cleansed from your sins. Start living for the Lord. Start getting into his word more. Start witnessing more. The doubts will then be eradicated. Of course I'm saved. The Spirit of God is working in me, transforming me through his word. I have a passion for lost soul. Of course I'm saved. I'm on my way to heaven. I'm saved, sanctified, redeemed, and justified, and forever reconciled. And I'm grateful to the Lord for that. Is that a minute, David?
Yeah, it was good. One more, because I think this is really important. Why is it that God seems to make certain people go through more trials where they have to persevere over and over again, while others seem to just coast through life?
I don't have an answer for that. Ravi Zacharias is essentially on his deathbed. I don't know if you know that. Did you know that, David?
No, I didn't.
The
No.
great apologist Ravi he was it was discovered that he had cancer about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and then now the doctors have said um, Nabil Qureshi, who was Ravi Zacharias' team, died a few years ago. He was having a great ministry. He died in his 30s. But I think of Donald Gray Barnhouse. He died as a young man. He died only when he was 65. The great Donald Gray Barnhouse. Like, why does God? These are outstanding servants of Christ, and why is God taking them home? And why does God permit? We sometimes sing some through the fire, some through the flood. Oh, Dave passed finding out. Look, this goes back to the book of Job. Job was a righteous man. I mean, an incredibly righteous man. And all of a sudden, God initiates a discussion with the devil. God is the one who initiated the discussion, not the devil. Have you considered my servant Job? Oh, you've given him everything. Of course he's going to hedge God a little bit. And let me at him, and things will change. And God did lower the hedge. And there's no answers given in the book of Job. There's no answers. I mean, why did God permit Job to suffer to the extent that he did? But God says at the end of, after Job's 4 friends mouthed off and spoke imprudently, God spoke. And he said to Job, where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? What right do you have to question me? I know what I'm doing. I know what I am doing. And I have a purpose. I'm not a capricious, arbitrary God. I know what I'm doing. Deuteronomy 32:4, as for God, his work is perfect. I know what I'm doing, and my work is perfect. And you can trust me in that. It's tough. Let me tell you something. It's tough to do. Lord, I do not get this. I don't get it. You don't have to get it. You don't have to get it. God's not under any obligation to explain anything to you. Whatever he does is good, and not just good, but for our good. Romans 8:28.
Yeah, thank you for that. It's, as James would say, it's for our perfection. And we end up better in the end than we do if we allow the trial and temptation to overwhelm us to the point where we repeat a cycle over and over again, where it doesn't strengthen our faith, but it weakens. And I think that's very important to remember. And, faith really does persevere and test you and refine you like gold in fire. And so thank you, everybody, for attending the Q&A.